Hello, welcome to our special. This is our first special episode that we're doing this year. With the team nominations being released, we are going to give you our thoughts on who should win the varying awards in the CFL. So, first, let's go through each team's nominations. First, the Montreal Alouettes. Their most outstanding player was Vernon Adams. That was a unanimous pick. Defense was Enoch Mwamba, most outstanding Canadian. Enoch Mwamba. Offensive lineman was Christian Mate, special teams was Boris Beatty, and most outstanding rookie was Jake Weineke. For the Ottawa Redblacks, their most outstanding player was Avery Williams. Their most outstanding defensive player was Avery Williams. Their most outstanding Canadian was Nolan McMillan. Their most outstanding offensive lineman was Nolan McMillan. Their most outstanding special teams player was Richie Leone, and for rookie they had Jared Fernandez. Now on to the Toronto Argonauts. They had for their MOP Darrell Walker, most outstanding defensive player Cleon Lang, who is also their most outstanding Canadian pick. Their most outstanding lineman was Sean McEwen, that was a unanimous pick. Special teams was Chris Rainey, and for most outstanding rookie was Keenan Gilchrist. Now on to the last team in the East, the Tiger Cats. Their most outstanding player was unanimous. It was Brandon Banks. For most outstanding defensive player, they had Simone Lawrence. Most outstanding Canadian, Brandon Revenberg. Most outstanding lineman was Chris Van Zyl. Special teams, Frankie Williams. And most outstanding rookie, Jalen Acklin. For the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, their most outstanding player was Willie Jefferson. Their most outstanding defensive player was Willie Jefferson. That one was unanimous. Most outstanding Canadian, Mike Miller. Most outstanding lineman, Stanley Bryant, unanimous. Special teams, Mike Miller, unanimous. Most outstanding rookie, Kenny Lawler. And for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, their MOP was unanimous. It was Cody Fajardo. For most outstanding defensive player was Charleston Hughes. Most outstanding Canadian was Cameron Judge. That was unanimous. Most outstanding lineman, Dan Clark. That was also unanimous. Most outstanding special teams player, John Ryan. And their most outstanding rookie was Dakota Shepley, which was also a unanimous pick. Now on to the Calgary Stampeders. There's a lot of unanimous ones coming up here. So for most outstanding player, Reggie Begelton, unanimous. Most outstanding defensive player, Trey Roberson, unanimous. Most outstanding Canadian, Corey Greenwood, unanimous. Offensive lineman, Shane Bergman. Special teams, Nate Hawley, unanimous. Rookie, Nate Hawley. For the Edmonton Eskimos, MOP, Trevor Harris. Defense, Larry Dean, unanimous. Canadian, Kwaku Boateng. Offensive lineman, David Beard, unanimous. Special teams, Sean White, unanimous. Rookie, Vontae Diggs, unanimous. And lastly, we talk about the BC Lions. Their most outstanding player, Brian Burnham. Most outstanding defensive player, TJ Lee. Most outstanding Canadian, Lamar Durant, unanimous. Offensive lineman, Joel Figueroa. Special teams, Sergio Castillo, unanimous. And rookie, Javon Catoy. Now, what do you guys think of the team picks? Before we get into our own picks for who we think wins these awards, what do you guys think of who the different teams picked?
I think they picked pretty good. I mean, everything considered with all the injuries and everything this year. And looking at a lot of the stats, a lot of the players slowed down in the last 4 weeks. So I'm sure it made it a little more difficult to pick. But no, I think they did good.
Yeah, there are some that I am pleasantly surprised by. Like being a Winnipeg fan, I completely expected the special teams player to be Medlock, and I'm glad that they not no shade to Medlock, but I'm glad they went with Miller because I feel like he just had a super outstanding year, and I'm glad they didn't glaze over that when thinking about the awards.
Yeah, that
Mhm.
a lot of that's true. The
Yeah,
only
I mean,
the one I have
oh,
contention with is that Brandon Banks was unanimous. I get that a lot of people are saying he's a shoo-in for MLP this year. But with the way Dane Evans performed, shouldn't he be in that conversation too?
You'd think so. Being a backup quarterback and guiding your team to the best record they've ever had, I think that demands it too.
Yeah, exactly. Like that. Yeah, that is weird. Now that you say that. Oh man,
Yeah,
I don't like that.
that's why I'm surprised he's unanimous. Like, not one person thought of that for the Ticats, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, without him, like if they had somebody else at quarterback after Mazzoli went down, like things could have been completely different, and they could have, they could have looked like Ottawa by the end. But no, they kept their ground and did better than I think anyone expected them to.
Yeah. And the teams with the most unanimous selections are Saskatchewan with 4, Calgary with 4, and Edmonton with 4 as well.
Hmm.
So, do you see any other debatable picks there for these teams?
Uh, I mean, defensive on Saskatchewan, you could always throw a couple other names in there. Solomon had a great year himself too. Cameron Judge, Derek Moncrief, Nick Marshall. Yeah, I think there's a lot of guys you could throw there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
What are you gonna
yeah.
say,
There's
Carter?
just like yeah. There's some guys that are unanimous that they probably couldn't or shouldn't be unanimous. But like I think these are all like respectable names. I don't think anybody like truly was snubbed or everyone's up in arms about it except maybe Dane
Yeah.
Yeah.
Evans. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't see any others that are really that debatable. The only one, Calgary for Corey Greenwood, he only played 12 games this year, so I don't know, maybe that nomination could have gone to someone else. But he was a significant impact player when he was in.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I'm okay with that. And then I think that's about it for the unanimous picks I want to challenge, really. So let's get into
yeah.
our picks, alright? So for our picks, we have a winner, and then we have the opposite division's nomination as well included in our picks. And you guys feel free to jump in and ask questions like, why did you pick him over this guy or whatever when we feel our picks, okay?
Sure.
Alright, so for me, I have my MOP as Vernon Adams, with the West nominee being Cody Fajardo.
Yeah.
Yep. Alright, we're all in agreement.
Nice. Yeah.
We all like
I
that?
mean, I
Yeah.
am.
That's
I
a good
am.
pick.
Alright. For defense, I have Charleston Hughes.
Yeah,
And
led the league in sacks.
yep. And then the East nominee, Simone Lawrence. Uh, Most outstanding Canadian, I have it being Lamar Durant, with the
Yeah,
East nomination being Henoc Mwamba.
both great players in the league.
Definitely. For offensive lineman, I have Dan Clark. I know a lot of people or I talked to some people on Twitter about this, so like, why not Stanley Bryant? And the case I made for Dan Clark is he survived an accident that would have killed a lot of people and had played all 18 games this year. Like, what he had to go through to get ready and go play compared to someone like Stanley Bryant, who might be a more talented lineman. That's why Clark gets my vote over a guy like that, just because of his journey and the obstacles he had to overcome to be able to play at such a high level this year, and that's why for me he's the most outstanding lineman.
I
Hmm.
respect that. I like that a lot, actually.
Yeah.
And then special teams, I have Nate Hawley, with my East nom being Frankie Williams,
Yeah, good picks.
and Jalen Acklin is my most outstanding rookie, with the West nominee being Nate Hawley.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he had a great year this year. Really, really good.
Yeah, he kind of forced his way into a starting job because he got in there because of an injury to somebody, I believe, and he just played so
Yeah,
well they kept him in the starting lineup. So you gotta like a guy like that who's not only a backup but a rookie backup. So
yeah, absolutely.
there's bright things ahead for Jalen Acklin. Then coach Kahari Jones, and my West nominee is Craig Dickinson. And I picked Kahari over Dickinson, even though Dickinson has a better record and won the harder division in the league. Kahari turned around a team that, everybody thought was going to be a dumpster fire and made them into a team with a home playoff game. So you have to
Yeah.
respect how he has turned around the team and the culture there, and they're starting to look more like the winning Alouettes we used to see.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Now on to Taylor's picks.
All right. So for my MOP, I have Cody Fajardo and I have Brandon Banks taking it from the East from behind him. He did have a great year, but I just think without Cody, the Riders wouldn't be where they are, and I think that makes him the most outstanding.
True.
Yeah.
Defensive, I got Charleston Hughes and in runner-up Simone Lawrence. Charleston led the league in sacks, and at his age, it's pretty incredible to see him do that. And Simone leads the league in tackles, and as much as I don't like it, he had a great year.
Mm.
Canadian, I have Lamar Durant and Enoch Mwamba out of the East. Lamar he had a great year, led Canadians in receiving yards, and yeah, he really made a name for himself this year.
Yeah. Good pick for MOC.
Offensive line, I have Shane Bergman from Calgary and Van Zyl as the runner-up. Bergman, I mean, you see a lot of other quarterbacks in the league get hit pretty hard, but you don't see that out of Calgary. So I think Shane Bergman does agree.
Yeah.
Special teams, I have Nate Hawley out of Calgary and Frankie Williams out of Hamilton for the runner-up. Nate Hawley, he was incredible on special teams. He was always down there making tackles, and if not, he was directing the guy to get tackled. So I think he's
Fair pick.
rookie. I have Jake Weineke out of Montreal and Vontae Diggs as a backup Edmonton. Jake Weineke, I believe he led rookie receivers in touchdowns. Yeah, he had 8 touchdowns this year. He didn't have as many yards as Ackland, but he had more touchdowns, so I think that's pretty important. And yeah, Vontae Diggs, he had a great year for being a rookie. I think he had 8 sacks to end the year, so that's pretty good, all things considered.
No doubt.
And coach of the year, I have Craig Dickinson and Orlando Steinhauer as the runner-up. Orlando did have the better record, but it was in the East Division, and I just think with Craig, being a special teams coach for a while and getting basically given the keys to the ship, I think he did a great job this year, and I think he deserves the award.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they're all really solid picks. I mean, that's the thing. I feel like there are so many guys this year that you can choose where it's to the point where it's like you can say pretty much any of the noms besides like a couple, and everyone will just agree because it's so close.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think very many people are going to be voting for obviously guys in Ottawa. I think they might get shut out, and then
Same as
Toronto.
Toronto.
I could see their most
Maybe.
outstanding
They could get-
lineman getting a couple
get
votes
lucky,
nationally
but-
with Sean McEwen because he's really good. But other than that, yeah,
Yeah. Okay, so I guess I'll move on to mine then.
go for it.
So for my most ascending player, I've got Vernon Adams, and I've got from the West, I have Fajardo in the runner-up position. I mean, we've been saying it all year. Vernon Adams just wins games. He knows how to play. He went from 2 games played last year to 16 this year, and like the numbers have just they've exploded off the page that I'm looking at.
Yeah,
He's just all around. He's been great all year.
Yeah.
Defensive, I'm going with Trey Roberson, and my East nom, as much as I hate it, is Simone Lawrence. I have Trey Roberson just because 7 interceptions, 41 defensive tackles. He's a super strong. He's always a presence on the field. He had that game-saving field goal against Hamilton.
I forgot about that. Yeah,
Yeah,
against Hamilton.
has that super play. I know that's technically special teams, but it was made on the defensive side of it, so I'm counting it here.
All right,
Still play, yeah.
I'll allow it.
Yeah. So that's why I have him there. My most outstanding Canadian is Cameron Judge, and my the East side is Mwamba. The reason I have Cameron Judge is you got 5 sacks plus 2 interceptions with your 61 already tackles. Those are great numbers to have.
My one
You're only
question about that though would be is that recency bias with him kind of sealing the game with that play last week?
It might be. Honestly, I think he has played solid all year, but I mean, there is a recency bias there, I think, to an extent. But I mean, just
He
looking at
helped
these
lock it
stats,
up.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, these late games are the ones that matter.
Exactly.
He's been good this year, I'll give you that. It's just, I remember looking at some stats with Derek Taylor. Judge does miss 21% of his tackle opportunities.
Ooh,
That's a
now that's a
concern.
stat. That's a stat I wish I saw on this page. I'm just on the CFL website getting my stats here quickly so I can jump between them all.
Oh, okay. I know I was just sometimes I tweet Derek Taylor, and it was
Oh
just
yeah,
something I asked him was, oh, hey,
total flex.
yeah, you know. Well, he sometimes helps with
Okay,
the show, you know.
so I'm looking at the looking at my next is would be the offensive line. And that is Jane Bergman, and my nom for the East would be Van Zyl. Yeah, I agree with Taylor there. The reason why I'm picking Bergman is that yeah, you just don't see Bo Levi getting tackled that often behind the line. You know, he's getting. I remember one line that they used against like the announcer said against when they were playing the Winnipeg Blue Bombers was like he can have like a full cup of coffee that takes 20 minutes to make and still be fine before he can throw the ball.
Yeah.
So the offensive line is obviously why. So I'm going with him. Okay, so for my special teams, I'm kind of going with some dark horses here. My special teams for the Nom is going to be Rainey. I think that he is done fairly. Like I think he's done solid all year. Just the shame in the situation that he's in. Um, and my actual special team selection is going to be Mike Miller, the fullback from Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Technically, what he is. Um, but yeah, I mean, I've sat here and it's looked like he's had, I think, CFL record-breaking 7 special teams tackles in a game against Ottawa, and those numbers always seem to be up towards that scale as well. Like he's always a presence. He somehow gets every single tackle, and yeah, and I'm glad that they were able to sort of give him the spotlight for once, which is nice because those players usually don't get that.
Absolutely, because that's not a
Yeah.
guy that I had even heard of before until you had that pick, and I asked you kind of why. So yeah, I'm glad you kind of highlighted him for someone who might not know about Mike Miller.
Yeah, it's funny because I had to look up his stats. I wanted to see if I could get like exact stats, but it just gave me his fullback stats. So it's like it's nice that he's had 1 rush for 10 yards this season. It's like great.
Yep.
Um, and so for my most outstanding rookie, I have Jake Weineke, and Nate Hawley is my nom from the West. I have Jake Weineke. Yeah, 41 receptions, 569 yards, 8 touchdowns. That's like the main point. That's what Taylor was saying. And I agree with that. That's like the biggest thing for me. It's like you want to get in the end zone. You can get
Yeah.
yards until the cows come home, but if you don't, like if you don't put the ball in the end zone, it's all for naught. So I have
Yeah.
him, and as my coach for the year, I have Kahari Jones, and Craig Dickinson is my West nom. But I'm going with Kahari Jones because I've never seen a coach cares so much for like he's up like in those like intense moments they'll show him and he's up and jumping around and like he's getting excited with the fans and that, but he's still focused on the game, and I like all the players love him, and so it's just like something that you need that out of your coach if you're going to be a truly successful team. Like you need to have that like respect and that like actually likability. Like you need to like your coach, and I think everyone in Montreal does.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that yeah, and those are my picks.
Yeah, those make sense. So we're gonna move on to our staff picks now. Now you've heard our voices obviously for most of this podcast running. We have a lot of different people that are working behind the scenes. Some of them you may have heard more than others. I know James has appeared on the show and Logan and all sorts of different people, and we got all their votes for these too, and we tallied up the total votes for the different awards, and then here is who we would have winning each spot. Okay? So the True North's pick for most outstanding player is Cody Fajardo with 3 votes. And then we also had 2 votes for Vernon Adams, Carter and I. And then we also had 2 votes for Brandon Banks. Now, for most outstanding defensive player, we have Charleston Hughes winning with 4 votes. Trey Roberson has 2, and Willie Jefferson has 1. Now, for most outstanding Canadian, this one's almost unanimous. We have Lamar Durant winning with 5 votes, and just 2 votes for Cameron Judge. Now, for most outstanding offensive lineman, we have 3 votes for Shane Bergman. We have 2 votes for Dan Clark, and 2 for Stanley Bryan. Most outstanding special teams player, we had 4 for Nate Hawley, 1 for Frankie Williams, 1 for Chris Rainey, and 1 for Mike Miller. And for rookie, we had a very split vote here. We had 3 for Nate Hawley, who just edged out Jalen Acklin and Jake Weineke, who both had 2 votes. And for coach of the year, we had, I believe it was Craig Dickinson winning with 4 votes, and 3 for Kahari Jones. So
Yep.
no love for Orlando Steinauer here, even though
I
I think he's a
mean,
viable option.
he is, but like I don't think he's anybody's first option. Is what I'm saying. That's what's rough about these. It's like you're only voting for who you think is at the top, and if you're everyone's second, you're nobody's first.
Yeah. Now these are the people we want to win. Who do you guys think on a basis? Who do you think is gonna most likely win? Let's go with most outstanding player.
I think they're gonna give it to Banks, but I feel like Fajardo deserves it more. Like Banks did have 1,500 yards, but there was a couple of receivers with just a couple hundred yards less than him. He did have more touchdowns, but Cody Fajardo had 28 overall touchdowns this year, top 10 rushing yards, top 10 rushing touchdowns, led the league in passing yards, and top 10 in passing touchdowns. So I think he deserves it.
I mean, yeah, I think they're also probably going to give it to Brandon Banks just because, like you said before to me, there's that recency bias there. Like he recently exploded during that one game. I forget how many like fantasy points he would have gotten for it.
I think it was over
It's
40.
yeah,
Yeah.
like that's crazy, and of course, like that's going to play a huge factor. But like, yeah, I think you can make a case for both Fajardo and Adams because like I think that overall they've had, I'd say they've had better years for their situations than Banks has. But I think it'll probably go to Banks.
I have to agree with that. I think it's probably going to Banks, but again, I talked about Dan Clark. The journey is important. And for Vernon Adams and Cody Fajardo, their journeys have been huge.
Hmm.
I know the previous staff, they were in Montreal, they were ready to cut Vernon Adams, but he played
Yeah.
his way out of that into backup job. And when Antonio Pippin got hurt, he, played really well as a starter and never let go of that job. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
he and Kahari Jones together have turned that team around, not only in, the win column, but as a culture, they just look like those old Montreal teams with Anthony Calvillo that we're used to.
Yeah.
Wait, yeah, I think it was a week or two after they locked up their home playoff spot there. They had like over 10,000 tickets sold to the game already. Like, and that was a couple weeks ago already. So, yeah, I think it's really done or really good what they've done for the culture there so far for
Yeah, it's
football.
like Montreal wants to care about their football team, just that for the longest time they didn't have a reason to. It's nice that
Yeah,
now that they do, and that fan base is starting to come back. Nice to have
yeah.
some Eastern representation in the CFL again.
Oh,
Oh, for
absolutely.
sure. And then with Cody Fajardo too, for me, when he signed with the Riders, I was like, what the heck are they doing? Because his whole career, he'd really been just a short yardage guy, and he had kind of just been penciled in as that kind of player. But, when he got that opportunity too, he just ran with it. And you gotta love those stories like VA and Cody there, who just, they were kind of penciled in as, backups, and they worked hard and got to where they are, where, they're leading winning teams, and they're
Hmm.
chasing the Grey Cup now this year.
Yeah.
Whereas we all knew that Banks was an established commodity and a receiver in this league coming into
Yeah.
this year. So that's why I want one of those two to win, but the way kind of everybody has been pumping Brandon Banks' tires, I think he's the one that's going to win that award.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, who do you think is most likely to win most outstanding defensive player?
I think they'll give it to Trey Roberson's my guess, or
Really?
Simone Lawrence. Yeah,
Oh
I
man.
just like they overlook Charleston so much, and like he leads the league again, but I just feel like they'll give it to Roberson. That's just what my gut's telling me.
If it goes to Simone, the Rider fans are just gonna lose it. They're gonna just burn
Oh,
everything in sight to
Absolutely.
the ground. That is
Hey,
not gonna be a pretty picture.
remember those few strange weeks when Bomber fans and Rider fans were like had like an alliance against Calgary? It's going to be like that against Hamilton
Yeah,
Yeah,
because we'll feel the same way.
yeah, because Simone's done a couple things to Riderville this year. He's not only taken out the starting quarterback on the third play of the year, but he also accused a very well liked radio commentator in Saskatchewan, Rod Peterson, of being a racist for calling Simone Lawrence a thug. And I mean,
yeah, it was just garbage.
yeah, like he's a I know what Rob was trying to say. He was trying to say he was a dirty player, but you know, he just tried to spin it into a race argument and that kind of pissed a
Mhm.
lot of people off too in
Yeah,
Riderville.
that was ridiculous.
And yeah, Carter, who do you think's most likely to win?
Um, I'm looking at this. It's probably probably going to be Trey Robertson. Honestly, I mean, he's had such a big year. Like every single time does like he has one of those games, it's always like like top 5 plays of the week, and he's on 6 of them. It's like that type of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know, so like the whole like blocked field goal. I swear it was like 4 weeks later until we finally stopped hearing about it. Which I mean, fair. It's a big play, but it's like yeah, they talk about him too much for him not to get that award.
Oh,
yeah,
Trey
that's true.
Roberson's great. I have 100% confidence that he's gonna be an NFL player. I think his contract's up this year, so he'll probably be heading down south right after that.
Good, get him out of Calgary. They
Yeah,
don't need him.
Calgary will
No
just pull
doubt,
another guy off the street though, and he'll be just
as
as
they
good.
always do.
That's just how they
Yeah,
run
Yeah,
that
right.
system. Yeah. But I think this is the year Charleston Hughes gets the recognition that he rightfully deserves.
I hope so.
Because he was even saying earlier in the year, it's like, if he doesn't win, the league is rigged. And I mean, yeah, they're starting to notice him. They're pumping his tires up on TSN and stuff. They're talking about him. Granted, some of them tend to favor Willie Jefferson, but I do think Hughes actually might get it this year.
I mean, yeah, because like the main reason I'm not saying Jefferson is because he kind of fell off, like, and not in the
Six
way that,
weeks almost.
yeah, not in the way that like some guys fall off for the last 2 weeks. Like, yeah, he had a rough end of like rough back half of this season.
Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah. His stats just kind of really slowed down in the second half.
no doubt.
Yeah.
And then let's move on. Who do we think is most likely to win most outstanding Canadian?
Yeah, I actually think they'll give it to Lamar Durant. Like the way he played this year, he had a decent amount of touchdowns and yards. So, besides that, maybe Cameron Judge, but it's going to be a tough call for that one. It always is.
Yeah, I mean, for outstanding Canadian, especially because Andrew Harris is ineligible for this year, which I think was the smart
Good.
choice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If Andrew Harris had been eligible for MOP and Most Outstanding Canadian, I think the league would have been considered a joke after that, because you can't have someone who's been found
well,
guilty of cheating win
he was
an
eligible.
award. He was, but I'm glad they didn't
Yeah,
vote for him.
yeah. None of them voted for
Yeah,
him. Yeah,
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
And so it's weird. I think they'll give it to Durant. I think yeah, a lot of people will agree with like what our consensus was on our choices here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, for the Canadian, it's a difficult choice this year. I think especially since you don't have Harris as that usual shoe-in. So it'll be fun to see someone else in there. But like, yeah, I think it'll probably be Durant.
True, because we were wondering too, right? Who's the next great Canadian receiver after Brad Sinopoli kind of had 1,000 yards for a couple years? It's like, okay, well, where's the guy that's gonna be next? And Lamar Durant, he looks like that next guy, that could be
Absolutely.
that big time Canadian receiver. And
Yeah.
so I hope that he continues on this path and continues to build off a strong year in BC. Cameron Judge, I don't think he'll get the love he deserves just because of that number that I pulled up earlier, 21% missed tackles. That's well above average. So he needs to clean up that part of his game, but he's certainly going to win a couple of most outstanding Canadians in his future, I think.
Oh, for
Yeah.
sure.
Now, for most outstanding lineman, who do we think is most likely to win that?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think Bergman gets it. Just kind of the facts that me and Carter talked about. That you always see Bo. You saw Bo and Nick Arbuckle always standing up this year. You didn't see them get hit like Chris Strevler did or Pipkin. Any of those guys like Logan Kilgore. Some of those guys got rocked. Even Fajardo too. So I think that he gets it. But I mean, they could always go with the Dan Clark story of the journey that he's had this year and give it to him.
I mean, I'm gonna go with Bergman only because I really hope that they make something new for Clark, like just like some sort of new award or some sort of new like memorial thing about someone in the past who's gone through something similar. Like, because like he deserves recognition for what he did this year. But I think that if you're looking at it from a stats standpoint, I think that you have to give it to Bergman. But I really hope that they give Clark recognition.
I think
Yeah.
it's actually going to be Clark because who's voting, right? It's journalists. And what do journalists love? They love a good
Stories.
stories. Yep. So I think
Oh,
just with what Dan Clark's went through, I think maybe he has a legitimate shot this year, although I think maybe some people will just go with Stanley Bryant because that's the normal pick, right? Is a lot of people
hmm
just default to him. Like like when I was talking with Derek Taylor on Twitter, he was talking to me about why not Stanley Bryan, and that was his example versus Dan Clark, and I kind of pled my case for Dan already. But yeah, I think maybe Dan Clark gets a little bit more votes because people know his story, especially in Saskatchewan. So hopefully he gets some votes and wins that award. I think.
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be nice. It would be nice.
Yep. Now for special teams, who do we think is most likely to win that award?
You know, I think uh I think Nate Hawley actually should win it. He had a great year on special teams and I mean, he's Canadian too, right?
Yep. Or no,
Yes.
Holly? Let me double
Is it
check
Nate
that. I'm
Hawley?
pretty sure he's an American.
Oh, okay. But I mean, he had a great year on special teams. You always heard his name when they were out there, so I think he gets the nod. And I mean, I do like Frankie Williams, but he did only have, I think, one touchdown this year. So he had some big returns, but one or two touchdowns in total. I don't think that's special teams of like player of the year worthy.
Yep. And I understand your confusion about him being Canadian. I just looked him up. His hometown is called Ottawa Lake, but it's in Mich. It's in
Oh,
Mich.
come on!
I know, right? but
Most
Hey, he's
outstanding
pretty
fake
much.
Canadian.
but
Yeah,
apparently Ottawa Lake is in Michigan, guys. It's
That
unfortunately
is
there
not
we
here.
go.
so. Well, I mean, isn't there a place called Winnipeg in New York?
Oh,
Like,
probably. There's all sorts of
I
weird places. Like
swear,
there's a
yeah.
Regina in Kansas too.
Yeah.
So
Great.
yeah.
Thanks, guys. Um,
But yeah,
but yeah, I
so
mean,
I
I
understand the confusion.
yeah. I agree with I agree. I think Nate Hawley is gonna be the I think he's gonna be selected. As much as I would like Miller because I think that's a nice change of pace. Um, but yeah, I think Nate Hawley's gonna be selected. Yeah, just had a really really standout year. So not much I can say on that.
Yeah, I think this is
Played
our
great.
first unanimous one here for most likely to win. I think it's going to be Nate Hawley as well. Now, for most outstanding rookie, this is the one that we were all very, very close on. And we had to, one person changed their vote to break the tie on this award. So, who do you guys think it wins this award or is most likely to win it?
You know what? I'm actually going to stick with my pick of Jake Weineke. He had such an impact there, and like his touchdowns weren't just random touchdowns. A lot of them were in clutch moments. So I think he can win the award.
Yeah, I'm going with Weineke as well. I genuinely believe that he has the biggest chance because TSN loves him.
That's
Like they
true.
love him so much. Like he's like on the top of every rookie list pretty much ever. So I think like yeah, if you're not going to give him rookie of the year after you've been hyping him up, I mean, yeah, I don't know what they're doing.
Now, yeah, I agree with that. For me, I don't think the yards are there to give it to Weineke. I think Nate Holloway wins too here because
Ooh,
we,
hot take.
yep, we saw a drop. Everybody expected Calgary's defense to take a significant drop off with all the players they lost, and their linebacking core wasn't as good because Singleton's gone. But they've been one of the best defenses in the league. They haven't really missed much of a beat.
How dare us doubt Calgary?
Yeah, exactly. Just when you think
God.
they're done, they always come back.
Absolutely.
Just finish last.
Yeah, really.
1 year.
That'll be when John Huffnagel and Craig or Dave Dickinson hang it up. I think.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Put Jason Moss over there. Jeez.
uh, yeah, I get Jason Moss there to mess up their Gatorade things, and yeah, maybe they'll have a chance of losing after that. But yeah, I think it's Nate Holloway for sure, just because of that huge impact he's had on that defense. And then
that is fair.
yep, and then finally, which we just talked rookie, most likely to win Coach of the Year.
I think Craig actually can win it. It's really tough. Like it's a toss up. Like Steinhauer did have a great year as a rookie coach too, but like, I just think with him being in the East and it's kind of an easier road. Like all they have to worry about is Montreal, and Montreal has off weeks, and then they're in the Grey Cup. So I think Craig deserves it more, just by coaching in the West Division, and being a rookie as well.
I personally, even though my pick is Jones, I feel like they're most likely to give it to Dickinson, just because yeah, it's a tougher road. I I like Kari Jones. I personally wish they'd give it to him. Don't think they will. Um, yeah, I mean they've both had great years. I just think that Dickinson's story is a little bit more impressive. Better record, harder division, finished first.
Yeah, I think it's Dickinson too. I think it's a three-horse race here, just because there are cases to be made for Kahari, Dickinson, and Dickinson, Jones, Steinauer. But yeah, I just think when Chris Jones left, there were a lot of questions going into this year about how the Riders would do, and many people were slating them as fourth or third in the West. And the fact that Craig Dickinson even succeeded Riderville's expectations and got them to first in the West for the first time since 2009, I
Mhm.
think that he probably wins it. And yeah, just with Kahari and Orlando, there's cases to be made there, and I wouldn't be surprised if either of them won, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing that cheesed me off about these awards is rookies, because when I was thinking rookies before, I was like, oh, it's got to be Quan Bray, blah, blah, but with the way it's set up, you can't pick anyone who's played in the NFL. So that excludes guys like Lucky Whitehead, Quan Bray,
LJ McCray.
Yeah.
yeah, LJ, who's been really good too.
Bro, what do you mean Tom Brady for most outstanding rookie in the CFL?
Oh, well, I think they should. I wish they could modify that so it's like guys who maybe haven't played. They play like a couple games in the league, like Jordan Williams Lambert, for example. He played a couple games for the Saints in the NFL, but he was, so he was not. I don't think he was eligible for that award. But Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he was up for Rookie of the Year last year. It
Really?
was him and Lewis Ward, yeah.
Okay, they must have changed that then, because this year was no NFL experience period.
Yeah, but maybe it's like you have to play an actual season game because I don't think Williams Lambert like played in the regular season.
I thought he did
I think
for
he
the
just
Saints.
I I think he just played preseason to be honest with
I
you.
have to look now, because I thought he
Yeah.
played a game for the Saints.
Quick fact check.
Yep, quick fact check here. We're going and looking. NFL.com.
And while we're just kind of searching this, I think it's upsetting to me that the CFL doesn't have a most improved player award.
Yep.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
like that would be somebody like Shaq Evans could win that award this year with he had 700 800 yards last year, no touchdowns, and he's got over 1300 yards this year and a handful of touchdowns.
Oh, wait. Oh, yeah.
So
Who is that again?
I think Shaq Evans.
Shaq Evans. Yeah. That's a good pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just finished looking that up. You guys are right. He didn't have any NFL experience. I don't know where I saw that
No,
for a
he
different
just
player.
yeah. Yeah, there's been lots of players, but yeah.
I think if we go.
He did not quite play.
All right, for most improved player, it's between Vernon Adams and Cody for me, and I'm going to pick Cody because Vernon Adams had the pedigree coming into this league. Like, his rights were traded for a first-round pick. People forget about
Yeah.
that, so Vernon Adams was no joke coming into the league.
No, absolutely. And I think Cody's a good pick too.
Yeah,
Like
Cody's more under the
nobody
radar, right? So I think he
yeah,
he
like
wins most improved player for me if that award exists.
yeah, like nobody saw this coming from a third string quarterback, sneak quarterback to leading the league in passing yards and he's top 10 in rushing yards and rushing touchdowns and passing touchdowns. So yeah, I don't think anyone saw that coming. But Shaq Evans is a good nomination too. I think a good shout out for that as well. Same as Kyran Moore even.
True.
Yeah.
Carter, who would you go with for most improved?
Probably Jack Evans, just because literally
Really?
came out of nowhere. I mean, it's hard to tell for me. Like I'm looking at most improved, and it's like you could. It's really difficult because again, I want to show some love to Mike Miller. I want to see what his stats were last year because it seems like we weren't talking about him at all before this season,
Yeah.
and now he's in the stats for that. We've got some messages here for some other candidates. I'll read them off as we go here. We have some behind the scenes people giving me some names: Cam Judge, LJ McCrae, and Derek Moncrief.
Very rider based
Yeah.
CFL commissioner.
Yeah, very,
Yes.
very rider based, man. Yep, that's one of our staff members. We have an Instagram group chat. Is go follow CFL.commissioner on Instagram. One of the guys that helps out with the show. But yeah, that's interesting. He's texting you guys in the group chat. That's good to know. But yeah, for me it's Cody Fajardo. Like Shaq
Oh,
Evans.
that's a good one. Yeah.
Shaq Evans definitely stepped up a lot this year, but just to think again, Cody was kind of written off as like a third string QB, right? So for him
Yeah.
to be going from that to the unanimous MOP of a team that's first in the West, that's why I think he would win that vote hands down. You know.
Yeah, that's fair.
And so that concludes our award show. We're going to have different specials at different times. I know whenever there's a prospect ranking that comes out, we were going to have a show about that and discuss the draft. And again, around the draft time, we're going to have a bunch of them. We're going to have things like we're going to have mock drafts. We're going to talk about the CFL Combine, things like that when that comes around. So we'll talk about the winners in the regular show. But thank you for listening. Give us your feedback on what you think of this kind of format of episode. Like, share, and subscribe. This is the True North CFL podcast signing off.